And we're live with David Peck. Hey, man, appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So we were talking before we came on. So you got a haircut today.
Dude, I'll tell you what, it's we're obviously dealing with the craziest thing in our lifetime. I'm
Yeah,
41. You look like you're in your 30s or
I'm
more.
42, but appreciate it.
Okay, 42. Uh, I've never seen anything like this. So, I was able about 3.5 weeks ago, my guy got me in, and it was like on the down low. I went there on a Saturday.
Really?
Yeah. I had the mask on. He had the mask on, and we were in the back of their hair salon or whatever. And then today I went in there. There's literally like you have your mask on when you come in. You got to go wash your hands when they're shampooing your hair. No talking. And dude, this is some heavy stuff.
So okay, so because my barber texted me and she's like, "You can come to my house, this week if you want." She's like, "We'll both wear a mask. We'll be outside." I'm like, "How am I getting my haircut with a mask on? Like, how can they line you up? Like around the ears, like."
Well, I tell you what. So today we took the mask off. He wears the mask,
Yep.
but 3 weeks ago I had one, and it was like it had like um, it wasn't the wrap around the head. It was like around the ears. So
Okay.
when like doing like the sides, he just kind of moves it over. But it's trippy. I mean, like you're sitting there with a mask on, and your hair person's got a mask on. It's like this is kind of weird times.
Yeah. No. Well, good for you, man. I'm like,
Because
I'm.
it's like I'm all about like when it first gets cut, you want it looking nice and tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No. Trust me, man. I think it's been 3 months since I got a haircut.
whew.
Yeah, I'm like, I really want to go get a haircut. I'm tired of wearing a hat all the time. I want to get my beard shaved. I want to. I'm like clean shaven. Tighten up. But I'm so afraid to go out in public. But
Well,
I guess eventually you have to go out.
where do you live?
I live in Boston.
Okay. So you guys, I live in Orlando, Florida, and,
Okay.
so I work in Winter Park, which is probably 6.5 miles from Orlando. It's like
Right.
you know, if you tell the people in Winter Park they live in Orlando, they're kind of pissed, but they live in Orlando, kind of thing. It's just right there, and so it's we have not been hit that hard in Central Florida. I
Right.
don't make light of it, but we've had maybe 2,000 cases out of 1.4 million people.
Yep.
So that's it's not encouraging, but it's also like not devastating.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. I guess that is a good point. I mean, we really haven't had any. I mean, I'm south of Boston by 20 minutes, whatever. But I just hate to be that one. I hate to be like that. I could just see like hitting the lottery or whatever, and end up getting. You know, I hate to take that risk, but anyway, so I had John because I follow you on Twitter, and you probably have the best wrestling card collection that I've ever seen. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, how did you get into it, and when did you start collecting?
So the wrestling card thing is kind of a weird thing because I never envisioned collecting wrestling cards. I grew up just like everybody else collecting baseball.
Yep.
And in 1985, when I was in elementary school, uh, there was the WWF top set. And so I did buy a couple packs
Yep.
at Walgreens or Woolworths. Um, but everybody was chasing Dwight Gooden.
Oh
So,
yeah.
when you're mowing yards and you made $8 to cut a yard, you're not spending 50 cents on too many of the WWF packs. You're chasing Dwight Gooden.
Right.
So, but what happened was I always dabbled in cards in college, and then in 2009, um, Brock Lesnar was going into the UFC. So UFC is kind of, I don't want to say it's kind of old news, but in 2009, UFC was, I mean, you were doing everything you can to catch a UFC fight. I mean, we had
Right.
parties all the time, and it was a big deal. So for about 18 months leading up, I kept telling everybody, I said, listen, dude, you don't understand. There's this guy, Brock Lesnar, that, yes, you guys all think wrestling's, ridiculous, but you don't understand. This guy's coming in and he's going to take everybody out. And so right before his first fight, I said, let me just kind of, I actually lost money. I put money with a bookie and lost money on that fight. But I said, let me throw a few bucks on some Brock Lesnar cards. So I went to eBay and I found some of his wrestling cards. And then, I was like, he played football. Let me see if he's got the football cards. And I mean, let me take that back. He tried out for football. So
Right.
I thought there was a chance he'd be in the sets. And so found the football cards and then started buying those. And I just said, there was a Hulk Hogan card when I was a kid. Let me see what that goes for. And I stumbled across his 82 card. And so I ended up buying a set of that and then the 82B. And once I got them in hand, I was hooked and said,
Now, do you know what you paid for those back then? The 82s? Because
Yep. So what happened is this is a cool story because the guy had him listed the 82A. He wanted $399, and it had a PSA 9 Hogan and a PSA 9 Jerry Lawler. The 82B, he had a BGS 9 5 Iron Sheik, BGS 9 Slaughter, and a BGS 9 Tito Santana, and he wanted $359. So I had no basis on what to go on. And I got to tell you something. I had not spent big money on cards at this point in my life. I spent 25 on a Brock Lesnar football card and thought I was spending a lot. So I said, it seems a little high. So they don't sell. Week later, he lowers them to $199 and $159.
wow.
So I put in the bids. I wake up the next day. Cool. I won. And so I paid $199 and $159. And, anybody that tracks the cards knows a Hogan 9, is a good card. So to get the complete set with a Hogan 9 and a Lawler 9 for $200 was pretty good.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was cool.
So did you know about those cards before you stumbled upon them, or?
No, I had no idea. I just knew that Hulk had an 85 Topps card.
Right.
And I wanted to see what that went for. And then I just saw this listed and I thought, I'm in finance. And so one of the things I'm real big into research, I just kind of like to look up stuff. So
right.
In the process, after I started buying the cheap, football and wrestling cards of Brock Lesnar, I started learning about some of the non-sport sets like the Three Stooges and Batman and stuff like that. And I saw that they were very expensive. And so I said, once I saw them and once I got them in hand, I said, these are going to be big time cards. And I just decided to dive head first.
Now, a lot of your cards that you show on Twitter are graded. Do you buy them graded, or do you send them, or do you buy them raw and send them in to get graded?
Both. I've bought quite a few cards already graded, but I've also submitted quite a few myself. And I'll tell you, in 2010, because remember the Wrestling All-Stars, there was just a small number in 2009 that were graded. And then early 2010 is when they started to get graded and the population total started going up. In 2010, I hit the jackpot. I bought a sealed set of the 1982A. And my goal, I paid $400. It was on eBay for 27 minutes or something. I mean, literally. And it was this guy, Jerome was his screen name from Minnesota. And he had been a dealer and he got them back in 82 and he would show them at the card shows and people said, these are gay. I mean, who wants wrestling cards, etc.
Right.
So I ended up, but when I got them in hand, I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to keep these sealed, but I went to work that day and I came home and I looked at the sealed pack and I couldn't take it. And I opened them. And anyway, that was the first time I submitted cards to PSA. And I got 4 PSA 10s out of that one pack. So, I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, there's only 67 PSA 10s from the 82A, and 4 of them came in that first submission. And then actually take that back, a 5th one, Steve Olszewski, he came in my second one. So 5 out of the 67 came from that one pack in 2010.
So, do you know when they released them? Did they release them as like packs like they did the 85 Tops, or was it a complete set that they released them as?
Only in complete sets, and so they're 1 through 36. But what's interesting is the 82A, there's actually two different versions of the pack. So you have one with the Crusher on the back, which is card number 30. And then you
Mhm.
have one, and most of them have the Destroyer, which is card number 36. But they are not correlated 1 through 36. So, for example, the Hulk Hogan card is card number 2, but it's in the middle of the pack. Now, if you get to 82B, once again, they're not correlated 1 through 36. You know, 1 and 36 are on the front and the back, but like Kerry Von Erich is card number 7, he's card number 2. But when you get to 83, they are 1 through 36.
Wow, you definitely that is that your favorite set, the 82s?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm much I 82A is my favorite. You know, I like, I mean, I like them all, but the 82A to me is, you know, it's just, it is what it is. I mean, you got Andre, Hulk, and Ric Flair. I mean, it's,
Right.
can't really beat that.
Now, so well, because so you're my age, but there's a lot of guys in the 82s because I looked up the checklist that I just never watched, right, growing up. So it's interesting how you came about starting to collect that.
Well, it really was driven by Hulk and Ric Flair and Andre.
Yeah.
To your point, like say the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser.
Right.
I wasn't familiar with them either. So, you know, really one of the things that's been nice about collecting all three sets is I was able to better educate myself on, you know, wrestling history. Like if you go to the 83 set, Tiger Mask, you know, most of us that grew up in the US and didn't have, you know, like a satellite dish, we didn't see matches from Japan. You know, Tiger Mask, the original Tiger Mask, who's in 83 set, he's arguably the best technical wrestler of all time.
Yep. So do you how many complete sets do you have of the 82s?
Well, that you talking about A2A?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you collect the do you go for the complete set or are you just
Oh
buying?
yeah, I have the top three sets of them all. So
Okay.
yeah. So the 82A, I'm about to complete my 10th graded set.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got well, I've sold off a bunch of like singles. I got 16 Ric Flairs, so that's the lowest. I have 16 complete sets. But I've got like 28 or 29 Andres. I got like 25 Hogans. I got a bunch.
How many PSA 10s do you have of the Hogans?
None of them
Oh,
exist.
none. Oh, okay.
No, it's a there's 16 in the pop report that are nines.
Yep.
No tens. And actually, I think there's only 14 nines that still exist because a lot of those have been, you know, a lot of people, and I didn't understand this when I first got into graded cards, but people crack stuff out and try again. You know?
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so when, you know, if you know, because a Hogan 9 just sold on eBay for a little over $4,000. I think people were expecting it to go for a little more, but that's where it landed.
Wow.
But a 10 is, you know, 25 all day, but probably more like 50. So, you know, if you're a dealer that's trying to land the 10, you know, as much as crazy as it sounds to crack out a $4,000 card, you know, 4 and 50 are a long ways away.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any trimming that happens with those cards. You know, I mean, you know, that's a big thing, right? In the PSA world, people crack them up. People
That's
crack
not
them
really a
open, trim them.
topic I want to get too heavy into because, you know, it's a not, you can't win that topic, you know?
Yeah,
You know, so I would just say that in the bigger picture, you just, when you're a collector, you just kind of have to do the best you can.
yeah. I mean that I'm so torn on the grading stuff. Like I'm a Bo Jackson super collector where I only buy Bo Jackson PSA 10s, right? But I won't buy a PSA 9. Like I'd rather just have it raw. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think the challenge that's happened over the years is that the market for cards has expanded so dramatically.
Yeah.
So when you have prices go up to the degree they have in so many genres, it does elicit bad activity, right? But I think for most of us, you know, we just have to do the best we can. And, you know, anytime I've submitted a card, it's obviously I submitted it. There's nothing I can do about it. the 9 versus 10, you know, I get tired of hearing the people online that talk about slab collectors and, oh, you just want 10s. You know, at the end of the day, a 10 is a 10. And, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Well, wait. What's people knock people that collect PSA 10s?
yes,
I didn't realize that.
oh, it's all over the place. It's so weird. You know, you just sit there and you say, like, seriously? I mean, because at the end of the day, um, the PSA 10, good or bad, uh, is the best investment grade of any card that exists, right?
Right. Well, that's my point. I mean, I'd rather just have a. If I'm going to get an 8 or a raw, I'd rather just pay the raw price, right? If I can't afford the 10, you know what I mean? Like, what would be the point? Unless it was like what you're referring to, where there just are no 10s, because
Yeah,
then
no,
the 9 becomes a 10.
I will say this, and this is something that I was not totally hip to when I first started. There are people out there, you know, because PSA sometimes will grade a card a 9 and then it becomes a 10, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Review, or it gets cracked out, and a second time there, it becomes a 10. So I think that there are people out there that are really, really good at identifying undergraded cards, you know?
Hmm. Yep.
So you might, I'll give you an example. So we'll put this in your sphere. Bo Jackson, 86 Topps Tiffany traded is his best card, I would argue, or at least
Right.
his major league card.
Yeah.
Okay. That card is super condition sensitive. I've probably like 7 or 8 years ago, I popped open a set, you know, because when I got into the wrestling stuff, then it kind of like there wasn't a lot to buy for a window of time, and I still wanted to kind of have fun, and so I bought some of these, you know, the baseball cards, etc. And I got a Bo Jackson, and it is pristine, right? The corners are just blazing. There's no
Yep.
chipping on the back, but there's two surface lines that go down the card.
Okay.
And it grades a 6. Okay.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Really?
I mean, you go from it like, unless you kind of tilt it sideways,
Yep.
it looks like a 10, right? But then if you can get it in the light, you'll see just these little lines that go down the card. It's a 6. So the difference is that you might find a bow that one grader says, hey, you know, I'm just not willing to give it a 10. But you send it in the next time, and for whatever reason, it's a 10. So I think there's some merit to buying 9s if, you know, if you just like the card, right? And you think there's
Yeah.
potential. But I just find it unusual that there's so many people out there, especially in the vintage world, that want to diss on people that buy 10s, because most of them, the reason they don't buy 10s is they don't want to cough up the money. You know,
Yeah. If you can't afford it, that's like I'm buying a 33 Gaudi Ruth. Well, I can't afford a PSA 10.
is
It's
there even
probably
one?
I don't even know if there is one. So I'm just gonna buy a PSA 1 because I want to just make sure it's authentic, and then I don't really care about the grade because I'm gonna keep it anyway. I'm not looking to resell it. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, in all fairness, when you start dabbling in Babe Ruth cards, I mean, the price escalation is so radical
Right. That's
from grade
true.
to grade. I mean, like I want to say I'm not aware that there's a 10, but I know there's some 9s.
Hmm.
They're like $600,000.
Right. Right.
You know, so we're getting into a sphere
Yeah.
that's just extreme.
Well, the other thing that I'm starting to learn about them because I want to start submitting my own cards to PSA is that it also depends on, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it depend on the quality of the card itself? Like I just picked up a 86 Topps traded Bo Jackson, and I got it PSA 10, and I'm looking at it. I said, how is this a PSA 10? Because the corners look, like the sides look a little, not perfect. And then doing my digging, it says that's just the way the cards were back then, and I guess they take into consideration how that particular set was.
Yeah, so give me a little better understanding. I mean, are they like scuffed up, or are they just, is it a
Um,
strange cut?
well, you know how there's like the black border here. You
Uh-huh.
could see some white on the edging around the edge, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look like a 10, but it's a 10.
Well, I'll tell you what. So the sometimes the cards look worse in the slab.
Yeah,
Sometimes they look worse in a card saver. But I think that a lot of people are sort of thinking a 10 is always perfect.
right.
And if you look at PSA's grading standards, it allows for just the slightest imperfection. I mean, like I'll give you an example. Michael Jordan cards are the hottest in the hobby.
Yeah.
Every time you look at a PSA 10 or a 9 in a scan up close, you'll see a little bit of fraying on the side. And I think that's sort of the factory cut. If you look
Okay.
at O-Pee-Chee, for example, and there's a little bit of O-Pee-Chee wrestling, but take the Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee. When I first got into cards and I saw the PSA 10 of the Gretzky O-Pee-Chee, I was like, what on earth is happening here? You know, it's got all these frayed sides. And
Oh,
believe it
okay.
or not, the hockey collectors, they like the frayed sides the most because back to your trimming question, let's take the tops. The tops is a standard cut card. A little easier to maybe have some trimming happen there. But if you have the O-Pee-Chee where the blades that they used to cut them were rough, you can't recreate that sort of O-Pee-Chee factory cut. So the collectors that are into that like it. So I just think that they do take it into consideration. But man, I tell you what, most of the time you look at a card that's a 10 and you say, okay, this thing's pretty damn nice.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you've gotten tens before that you've submitted raw?
Yeah, a bunch.
Really? That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, it is, but I mean, when you think about the volume of cards I've bought,
Yeah.
it just kind of comes with the territory. And I would say also that not every card's created equal. So I'll give you an example. In wrestling, there's a fun set from 1988, the 1988 Wonderama, and it was by Jim Crockett Promotions. Okay.
Okay.
These are white bordered cards that the images are not the best, and centering on certain cards isn't the best, but man, they are blazing out of factory sets. So if you open a factory set and you can find that card that doesn't, let's say, have print defects or centering defects, you got a pretty good shot at a 10. So I've gotten a bunch of 10s from there. But you want to get into some of the more condition sensitive sets, it's a lot more challenging. You know, because like the wrestling all stars, there's a huge percentage of them that there's never been a 10.
Right. Now, they made an 83 set too, right?
Yeah.
Do you have that too?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have the top great PSA sets, all three.
That's unbelievable. I want to know, how do you find out about these? Like I saw the the Wonderama ones. I'm like, how does he even know about those? And then the what was the Hulk Hogan Japanese card that I saw you put up one time?
Well, there's a couple of them. The best one is the 1981 Poppy.
Okay.
And that's on his Poppy figure, you know. So the Hulk Hogan's original figure is from Japan from 1981.
Right.
And none of us know the answer to this question. For whatever reason, of the figures, wrestlers in the set, Hulk is the only one where his card is not on the front most of the time. It's Mil Mascaras.
Oh, interesting.
And nobody knows why. So it is super short printed. There's about 12 or 13 known copies right now in the hobby. I mean, when you put that in perspective, like, you know, pretty damn rare. So I don't have one graded because I bought a figure with the card, and then I went and got it signed by Hulk. He loved seeing it. That was really fun. But I don't have one graded. I mean, they're that rare. But as far as finding out what happened is, you know, wrestling cards were so cheap in 2009. I mean, like those Wonderama sets, I bought 13 sealed sets for $40 a piece. You know, today they're probably $350. So I mean, I opened them all. You know, a lot of people are into keeping stuff sealed. I was all about trying to find cards to get graded. So I legitimately, the only thing I have sealed is that Hulk Hogan figure.
Wow. So will you grade any card in the set regardless of who it is, even if it's, you know, a common, or how that works, or are you only setting in the stars?
Well, on the Wrestling All-Stars, because I was so passionate about having the top registry sets, I'll grade obviously any of them. There's 108 cards in all three. So,
Okay.
you know, and one of the challenges I think for a lot of collectors is if you're not doing registry sets, it never makes sense. But, some of the commons in a PSA 10 sell for more than some of the stars based on how difficult it is condition wise, right? So like if you take, I'll give you an example, the 83 set, Matt Bourne is the last card in the set, right? And that, he was Doink the Clown later in his career. And a lot of people don't realize Matt Bourne was a bad dude, like legit tough guy. Unfortunately, died pretty early. Well, you can just imagine if you're card 36 in every sealed set, that creates some obstacles in terms of condition. Then those last 3 purple cards, a lot of them have these big like circular print dots on them, and then you've got centering issues. So a Matt Bourne in the 9, there's 5 of them, is going to sell for more than maybe Jake the Snake in a 9 because Jake the Snake has 9s and 10s, right? But when we start getting into like a Wonderama set, no, I'm not going to grade Tiger Conway. I just can't go there.
Wow. What's the now? Do you check them yourself? Like, do you guess what they're gonna get before you send it in?
Yeah, I mean, I pre-screen everything. I mean, I don't want to listen. I mean, the challenge with card grading is none of us are perfect. I'll give an example. Like, I totally screwed up on an Andre Opeachy from '87. A couple years ago, there's a massive wax stain right on the front. Or no, gum stain. Like how I missed that is sort of beyond me, but I did. So when I get it back, I said, geez, how did I get a 5? And then you look at it and say, oh, now I know how I got a 5. But for the most part, I'm pretty close. I think the challenge too with card grading is some graders are more difficult on certain attributes than others. The other thing is different grading companies are more different.
I know.
So for example, like Beckett on the Wrestling All-Stars, it's not even close compared to PSA. They're not even close to as tough. Like there's loads, or I want to say there's 7 or 8 Hogan 9.5s. There's none of those that'll be a PSA 10. So they are okay with virtually no lower border, whereas PSA wants that big fat lower border. And so it's just like a 9.5 Hogan is, I think we saw one go a while back, maybe 4,000, maybe it's somewhere in that range. Like I said earlier, I mean, the first Hogan 10, I don't want one to happen because it's going to be out of my price range. I'm not really, I don't want to spend $50,000 on a card, to be honest with you.
So, okay. So tell me this, what is your take on like the grading in general? Because it didn't exist when we were kids.
I like it.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Like you asked me to pull some cards out and I've got, stacked next to me. Let me just, let's see what
we got.
Yeah. Well, this card will make more of the point. I got a bunch of them here, but so like you take a, all right, this is a fun one. So this right here, let me get it over. Can you see that okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, so this is the Ric Flair Carnation.
Okay.
This is a pop 1. And this is a super condition sensitive card. They are, nobody really knows the story on the Carnation set. And I'll tell you, so.
Now, what year was that from?
Well, there's a copyright on the back that's 1985.
Okay.
PSA has labeled it 1986. So in 85, the WWF was sort of taking the wrestling world by storm. We all know that. So Jim Crockett Promotions and Jerry Jarrett from the CWA and Vern Gagne from the AWA, they created Pro Wrestling USA. And so they started doing these joint cards with all their stars. Well, if you look at these carnations, there's only 6 cards in the set, and they're all people that were featured on those. You have Kamala, Rick Martel, the Koloffs, Ric Flair, the Road Warriors, and Sergeant Slaughter. Okay. And there's a poster offer on the back. I've never seen one ever. I've never seen the box that these came in. Now there are sealed packs. You'll see those. They came in cocoa mix boxes, and the way, and they definitely were in boxes, because you'll find sealed packs that have the residue of the cocoa mix, but
Okay.
you've never seen a poster. So my thesis, and this is just a thesis, is that these were for the Pro Wrestling USA promotion, and since that shut down quickly, that they stopped selling them, and then hence the posters never were redeemed. That's just my thesis, but it makes the most sense. So, and I think it was regionally based. I mean, here in Orlando, I certainly never saw them. I've seen a lot of the packs come out of Ohio, so once again, more regionally based, but you can just sort of imagine if there's 2 cards in a box of cocoa mix and they're on the shelves, they get thrown onto the conveyor belt, they're thrown into the grocery bag, the mom throws them in the trunk, the milk is on top of the box, whatever. I mean, you have a lot of condition sensitivity, and then you have the issues with just corner damage in a little teeny little pack, and then centering and print dots, etc. So I love the concept of, people are into the super refractors, right? Well, okay, fine. I'd rather find a super refractor that's sort of the diamond in the rough. So like this flare, there's 7 in the pop report of the 9s. I know there's only 6 because one's been resubmitted. There's like 5/8. I mean, you're talking about hard to find card. So for me, I like the concept of being able to say, hey, at least for the time being, I've got the only one. So I like grading.
Now, did you find that one? Did you buy it as a 10 or did you submit it?
I bought it as a 10.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is, the wrestling cards are, they come up a lot in value, but they're super cheap compared to, say, baseball. If you or basketball, like think about LeBron James, let's take it more to baseball. Like there's a Leland's, or not Leland's, Golden's auction right now, and they've been having some software problems or server problems, right? There's a Mike Trout that's numbered to 5 that right now with the buyer's premium is over 600 grand. Okay.
That's unbelievable.
Well, I don't know what the right price is.
Right.
I say, I think it's very high. I mean, I agree, but think about that for a second. You're talking about a card that the guy's still alive. He's still playing. Tomorrow he could go out and get drunk and run somebody off the road and end up in jail. So, I mean, there's career risk that sort of always exists. He could, pull a hamstring or, blow his elbow out, whatever the case may be. $600,000. Well, that's a far cry from 2,500, which is what I paid for the flare. So, I'm playing in the minor leagues in terms of price.
Yeah. I mean, do you worry about what happens 20 years from now at all with the values?
No, because honestly, collecting first and foremost for me is for fun. So,
sure.
I don't, I've missed out on cards over the years where the timing just wasn't right for me. I'm very much into my personal finances. And so I was very, I worked 13 years to pay off my condo that I'm talking to you from. I put that ahead of cards. I've maxed out my 401k for 15 years in a row. Those contributions go before buying cards. So, I have a, valuable card collection. I mean, and I have obviously, put a lot of money into it, but it's just not, if you're banking on your card collection for retirement, I think people, it's just not smart. I don't tell people what to do with their money in that sense. Like, if somebody just wants to do that, be my guest, but you're going to have to sell them at some point. It's not like they don't pay dividends, there's no interest. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I think all of us are a little shocked at the prices right now. I mean, I think there's been an element of people who've been in the hobby for a while. I mean, this is kind of bewildering what's happening in the last few months, and we'll just see how it plays out.
I mean, I think a lot of people accept the fact that, or at least will agree that there's some type of manipulation happening, whether it's people who bought cards last year and have a huge following and are able to pump them up. I mean, there's a lot of cards from the '80s that aren't worth what they're selling for, and I just laugh because I know that they're going to plummet in September or October. But the reason I was asking about the wrestling is because all the figures behind me. I know that there's only a certain age group that cares about them, and I know that in 20 years they'll probably be worth nothing, and I'm okay with that because I love them and they make me feel great when I walk into my office and I see them.
I think that's really the takeaway is that, I've never done one of these where I'm actually looking at me and you at the same time. And
Yeah,
every time I look at your smiling face, I can't help but look over your shoulder and see the figures. And I can see Jesse the body right there flexing. Um, it's hard to say, and I'll tell you why. Because I've got a buddy of mine in the finance business, and it was so disappointing. Uh, April, we were supposed to have WrestleMania in Tampa, right? I live
right.
in Orlando, and I've got a good friend of mine, this guy Greg Weiss. So anybody that buys rare wrestling cards on eBay has probably seen a eBay ID Weiss Esquire, and that's Greg, right? And Greg's an attorney from South Florida, and anyway, so he's a wrestling vendor, and so Greg, and I've been fortunate to get to know him because I've gotten to go to New York and I've gotten to go to North Carolina and do wrestling shows and basically help him. And I work the tables with the wrestlers, right?
Yep.
So it's just unbelievable. You get to sit there and, shoot the, I don't know if I can say shoot the shit, but shoot the shit with, Ken Patera or
Yeah.
Greg Valentine or whomever, right? So we were all lined up to go to Tampa. And Greg had 13 people lined up. I mean, big show for the WrestleCon there. So my friend Bob, who lives in Tampa's son, is just a diehard Hardy Boys fan, right?
Okay.
He buys the figures, just loves the Hardy Boys. So I don't really get too heavy into the modern cards, but if you go to the 2002 WWE Fleer Royal Rumble set, which has the Brock Lesnar and John Cena rookie cards and, Randy Orton, Batista, there's a bunch of pretty cool Hardy Boys cards in there. So I pulled a event used card and I pulled a bunch of them, put them all in card savers. And I said, hey, Bob, I'm going to mail these to your son. So we didn't tell him they were coming. He got this huge package from me of the Hardy Boys, the event used stuff, etc. He just loved it.
That's awesome.
Loved it, right? So there's a chance that you might, I don't have any kids, and my wife had a hysterectomy, so there's no kids on the horizon. But if we had kids, and let's say that they get to your age and they find out who Andre the Giant is, just like Babe Ruth, there's a chance that they want the Andre LJN figure, right?
Yeah.
Now, will they want the Corporal Kirshner? Probably not, right? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that one of the things that people have to understand is that our generation, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, I mean, these are the Babe Ruths, these are the Lou Gehrigs of wrestling, right? And so one of the things that I'll never forget, and I do have a sense of satisfaction over this, quite frankly, is so in 2010, I by chance got on the message boards because I also collect Mike Tyson. And so what happened is I was watching a Mike Tyson DVD, the ESPN one, and I was like, man, I'm into this Flair and Hogan and Andre. What about Mike Tyson? He's got to have
Right.
stuff. So I came across his 86 Panini from Italy. So I get into a bidding war. It's like 1:30 at night. I've been drinking and I'm like, I'm not losing this thing. So, and it was a beater and I paid $82, right? So I kept trying to research it. I knew nothing about it. And about 3 months later, some guy was on the Collectors Universe or PSA message board. And he's like, I think I got chilled up. I got into a bidding war. I lost. And I was like, I won that auction. There's no funny games. So I logged in and I signed up and I said, hey, that was me. Well, then they're like, what do you collect? And I'm like, all right. Somebody said something about the Hulk Hogan rookie of the 82. And I started talking about those. And then I started showing the cards and everybody just said, these are gay. This is garbage. There's nothing here. And one of the things I said at the time, and it still holds true, is I said, listen, Mike Schmidt can walk through the airport, and a lot of people don't even know who he is. Hulk
Right.
Hogan cannot walk through the airport and not be recognized. So, the thing about these wrestling legends is there's people like me, you, and casual fans. I mean, these are legends. These are pop culture icons. So I think some of these collectibles, even 20 years from now, will still be sort of looked at as like part of American culture.
Right. Do you own any Andre the Giant stuff aside from the cards?
Yeah, I've got not much. I've got the cards, but I went and bought the '84 LJN, and
Okay.
it's funny because I have not been bullish enough on a lot of the stuff I bought. Okay, so I bought for like $14 a beat to shit Andre in an LJN mint on the card.
Yep.
I was like, I bought a Hogan white shirt. I mean, I bought some more expensive ones, and I popped every single one of them out. They are on display. Okay, I've got a brand new LJN ring that I paid $200 for. I look online; those are $800 now, which is like, oh gosh. But whatever, life goes on. So I've got the Andre displayed in the ring, and now those go for $200, $300, $400 or whatever. So, but as far as, and I bought some autographs. Andre's autograph's tough.
That's what I've been looking for is an Andre autograph. I saw one on eBay, but I couldn't tell what was being authenticated, if it was the picture of the autograph or if it was the autograph itself. So I didn't bid on it because it seemed a little vague as to what I was bidding on. But I've been looking for one of those like PSA DNA cut autos of Andre, which
I
don't come
tell
up
you
often.
the real challenge with the Andre autograph is, and I'm not going to sit here and shit on any of the grading companies. You just have to sort of think about how much he changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think from 72 to say 94. Now he wouldn't have signed in 94. He was dying that final year, but he probably signed something in say 92. The guy's hand grew and grew and grew. Andre is arguably the most legendary drinker of all time.
Right.
He legitimately put away 156 beers. Okay. He has numerous times, it's funny. So I want to say 1991. And I didn't grow up with money, and we didn't have a swimming pool in the backyard. So there's a hotel by the Orlando airport, the Orlando Marriott, and they had this really big, expansive pool. So they had a deal where you could pay $119 a year and buy a membership and get to use the pool. Well, it just so happens to be that when the wrestlers would come to town periodically, that's where they stayed. So at 12 years old, I couldn't have put anything, two and two together in terms of how much alcohol this was. But we were there, and one of the guys working at the pool was like, oh yeah, Andre the Giant was here earlier, and he drank 3 bottles of Crown Royal and 2 bottles of wine, and he was going to a show later that night. So, I mean, Andre, put away a lot of booze. Well, just think about, like, I don't know if you've ever gone out partying. I mean, I've done a lot of partying in my lifetime. Does your signature at 2 a.m. look like it comes at 9 a.m? Not
Right.
really. So the problem with Andre to me is there's just so many variables that changed over time. And the grading companies, what they want to do is they want consistency. They want to see, like if you look, Andre's got a 1994 action-packed card, WWF.
Yep.
It's sort of like a super embossed card. And it has like a beautiful Andre signature that's, on there, right? That's the Andre autograph they want to see. But he could have been walking from ringside and you held out your program and he scribbled his name. So I think it's a challenge with Andre's autograph in particular, because there's just so many what looks like bad ones out there at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the grading companies are going to get more and more cautious of authenticating them.
Oh, yeah, I guess that is interesting. That's one thing interesting about the wrestling autographs is that they're not using their real name, right, when they sign it. So, it's obviously something they had to practice.
Well, I'll tell you something. Do yourself a favor, because so what I do a lot of times, just to sort of navigate the wrestling collectibles market, every day I check eBay completed sales. Do a
Yep.
search for Andre the Giant and just set it price highest first. There, I saw one of the coolest things I've ever seen of Andre. There's a signed check from when he worked for the St. Louis Wrestling Club, which was
Okay.
Muchnick, and he signs the back Andre Rusumov. I mean,
Wow, that's
to
pretty
me,
cool.
that's pretty cool. I was like, okay, this is his. He's gonna sign that $1,000 check. $1,000 at 79 was was money.
Right. I bumped into Tim White last year at the Hall of Fame,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
That's
thought about it.
right?
I would love to go up to him and just ask him what he had, what he has for memorabilia. He must, because I think he lived with Andre or traveled with him. That guy must have a ton of stuff, I would imagine.
You would think, but I tell you something. I think sometimes people get so close to the people that either one, they're sort of embarrassed to ask, right?
True. Yeah.
Or they're just feel lucky to be around them, and they're maybe not as enamored as we would be. Because Andre the Giant, you're seeing this explosion in, let's say, Jordan cards. You're all of a sudden Mark McGuire. I mean, who could have thought Sammy Sosa? Who would have
Yeah.
predicted that? Andre had a Showtime, I believe it's Showtime, or maybe it's HBO.
It was HBO, the documentary.
Yeah, that, I tell you something. So I've been so active in these wrestling all-stars for over 10 years. And, when you have a bunch of them, listen, like we said before, this ain't my retirement, but I'd be lying to you if I want the prices to go down. I mean, give me a
Of
break.
course.
Who buys
Yeah.
stuff and wants it to go down? The Andre card got very cold for a window of time.
Really?
And yeah, it did. It got cut in half. And it was weird because, just couldn't figure out, I think what happens when cards are falling, and, so I'm very active on message boards at times. If you think back to the Jordan, when the Jordan 10 hit 40 grand the first time, everybody says, oh, this is way too much. It fell to 23,000 over the next year. Nobody was buying at 23 because they thought it was going to 20 or 16. Now,
Right.
all of a sudden it's going up and there's, more interest, right? So I think what happens sometimes is when they're falling, people kind of get scared, almost like a stock. Well, that, documentary came out and Andre's collectibles started to percolate. Now, not like in great amounts, right? But they started going up. And if you look, like, he's got an LJN figure, it might be behind you. He's got the black attire.
The black card. Yeah.
Well, the black card, but he's got the black ring.
The black strap Andre.
Black strap, we'll call it that. Exactly. That thing meant on the card has been going berserk.
Yeah.
I think I saw one recently that was $3,000 or
$2,800. It's about right. Yep.
It's high. Okay. Well, you used to be able to get one of those for $400 to $600. Now,
right.
That might have been 5 or 6 years ago, but it has taken off like a rocket. And I think that the odds of that going down a lot are probably not that high.
Yeah, no, you are probably right. It's an interesting market, right? Because it's,
by the way, I don't know if you see, I've got the
wow,
shirt.
that's nice. Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that from?
One of the roots of the fight, I
got okay.
Them, but I figured I'd.
No, I love it. That's awesome, man.
Occasion.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, because you're obviously being in finance, but there's not a lot of liquidity in the card market, right? So it's always interesting to me how stuff skyrockets when it kind of reminds me maybe of like the cryptocurrency a little bit, how it's easily manipulated. Yeah.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. And so I think you'll like this answer. So with stocks, okay, so let's just take, let me just think of a stock that's been, okay, take Zoom
Okay.
Media, okay?
Yep.
One of the hottest stocks right now on Wall Street, right? It's easy to understand. People are at home. People are Zoom, right? The valuation, and let me just make it clear. I'm not recommending Zoom. There's no, in finance, got to be a little careful when I talk about stocks. But the difference is Zoom's valuation, like this isn't really debatable, is unbelievable. It's got a market capitalization that's around 50 billion. They lose money. Okay. So when you buy Zoom stock, you are legitimately making a play on the future. Okay.
Right.
Right. But most people would agree that video conferencing in some capacity, I'm video conferencing with you, is here to stay. Right. And so what happens with stocks, though, is you have a tug of war between the bulls and the bears. Okay. So bulls obviously want the stock to go up, bears want the stock to go down. Well, you can short stocks. And so most of the stocks like Zoom that go to the moon are heavily shorted. And so what happens is you have people that say, this stock's overvalued. I'm going to sell it short. And what ends up happening is the price is going up. They're losing money, or they're in the options market, which is the derivatives market, and they have to close out the trade at a loss as it's higher. Okay. Well, at some point, there's enough artificial supply to slow the market down. And then what ends up happening is once the market breaks, then all of a sudden they start crushing the thing with even more artificial supply, and down the stock goes. With trading cards or collectibles, you can't create artificial supply. There's no way to say, like take a Michael Jordan at 96,000 in a PSA 10. I would guarantee you, given the chance, there's a lot of collectors out there that say, I'd short that card at 96,000.
Right.
The other side. I'm willing to bet that this card can't sustain 96,000. The difference is you can't do that. And so when you have new money, when you have already interested money that maybe owns the card and is doing their best to build some support underneath the card, maybe buy another one if they have to, or then you think about some eBay auctions. There's a lot of them that don't get paid for, or I'm going to run this thing up and then retract the bid. So cards, yes, they're not necessarily totally liquid, but the market is not efficient because there's so much room for fraud. And there's no artificial supply. So it is I'm not maybe as negative as you were in terms of, I don't think Jordan's going back to 23,000.
Right.
But I would say that if you told me it's going back to 65, I'd say, well, I can see that happening. It's not going back to 23.
Right.
Because there's what happens with when you get, like, take a Derek Jeter 93 SP. $167,000 card. When I got on message boards, it was a $6,400 card in 2010, and every single person said, "Oh, it's overvalued."
Wait, do you own one?
No. I don't have any cards in that. No. Listen, the most expensive card I have, I pulled it out. I was going to show you is my Andre 9. So
hold on, we have a question from somebody. Do you know Kenny Casanova wants to know what card was the most difficult to obtain?
Oh, that's a no-brainer.
That's it.
Well, this is set.
Who is that?
That's Dr. David Schultz.
Oh, David Schultz. Okay.
So this is the 1979 Rax roast beef. This is by far the most rare set of wrestling cards out there. They were handed out at a Nick Goulas show, November 21st, 1979. And they are insane. There's only there's 3 David Schultz graded, and the one guy owns 2 of them. And actually, he's good friends with David Schultz. And I assume you've been watching these Vice TV, Dark Side of the Ring. They just did Schultz. He, in his book, in his autobiography, he features his card because, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I said to this guy, Bob from New York, I tried to buy the card, and David Schultz is, he's just not that kind of guy. I offered him money. He said, no way. He's like, he doesn't know me. So it took me a while. It took me 7 years to get a set, and I'm the one that worked with PSA to get them graded. And I mean, I think there's 4 or 5 known copies of that card. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, The other card in the set that is super cool is King Tonga, which is Haku.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat.
Do you know Kenny? Do you know Kenny Casanova?
I don't.
He's the author. He did Kamala's book. He did Brutus Beefcake's book. Vader's book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's yeah. I mean yeah. I mean the thing with wrestling cards though, there's a difference in terms of rare in the terms of the card. Like I showed you a Carnation Ric Flair. You can get on eBay and find that card. Good luck finding. There's been 2 David Schultz in history ever offered on eBay.
Wow.
Oh yeah. No, I mean we're talking about a level of scarcity. Um, I've been fortunate enough to be interviewed in the PSA's magazine, the SMR, a bunch of times.
Yep.
And we did an article on that set. I mean, it's pretty wild. And actually Scott Teal, who if he does books, he'll know Scott Teal. I
Yeah.
bought the set from Scott Teal.
Really?
He was the photographer that took the photos. So in the article,
that
Scott,
is so funny.
That's good.
Yeah, we just did a wrestling event a few weeks ago called Wrestling Bookmarks. We called it COVID Con. Yeah. So I was one of the moderators, and Scott Teal. I happened to interview Scott Teal, so I got to moderate his segment.
Great. Good dude. And
yeah.
I tell you, so this is the other one that took forever.
Now, how did you find Brock Lesnar in a football uniform when he didn't play?
Right. So this is in this is the gold version. These are numbered to 50. And so back in 2009, when I started collecting Brock cards, I did buy some of his 2004 football cards. So what happened in 2004, and this makes sense, just like they put hot prospects in, baseball, the card manufacturers got word that Brock was going to be in the tryouts. And so he's got 3 different companies that he's in 04, Upper Deck Sweet Spot, Leaf Rookies and Stars, and then Playoff Honors. And so the lowest print run is actually a holofoil in the Leaf Rookies and Stars. It's numbered to 25. I've only seen 2 surface. I own both of those. But I didn't even know they existed until a couple years ago. I kind of picked them up back to back, like maybe a year apart. In 2009, I did find his platinum sweet spot that's numbered to 999. So I got a few of those. And it took me 7 years to finally get a gold version that's numbered to 50. They are very, very hard to find. So, Brock's cards are not super valuable. I will say they do seem to be going up a little bit lately. I own a huge percentage of the graded copies. I probably have 80% of them. I mean, I have a bunch of them. But this one right here, there's only 2 graded by PSA. I've got both of them. But it's like you can go years without finding one. So I get turned on by that. It's fun when you check eBay every day and all of a sudden, like, the white whale shows up.
So, all right, let me ask you this question. How do you know what to price something when you're the only one that has the only copy, when you have the only copy of it?
I mean, to sell it or to buy it?
Like, if you were, I guess either or. Like, when I see one of ones come up, I'm like, how do they know what to price that at?
Well, you guess. I'd say this. No, so when you, like, I don't poo-poo what people collect, okay? People used to make fun of what I collected. I laugh about it because now they have to look on eBay and see the prices and deal with it, right? Well, the difference is when you get in like these super refractors, I mean, in the Heritage auction a week ago, there was 2 super refractors. I don't even know these guys' names. Now, I understand that a diehard baseball collector knows who they are, right? I used to love baseball. I mean, I casually still follow it. I know who a few of the top players are, but I mean, obviously Mike Trout and some of these guys. But when you start getting into the unless it's the super hot prospects where you just see their cards posted everywhere, the Aaron Judge or the Acuna or whatever. I don't know a lot of these underneath players. $110,000 for super refractors, okay, that are like 8 or 9 years old. Now, I can't wrap my head around that, but somebody thinks it's worth it. So, there's so much money in the world that if somebody's got enough money to drop 110 grand on a super refractor, I'm not going to question it. Okay. So the difference is when a Brock Lesnar shows up and it's $50, if it goes from 50 to 100, I'm not tapping out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the thing with a lot of this stuff is it's just not that expensive. I mean, I paid maybe $100 or something for the first Brock and 55 for the second one. If it'd gone to 500, I probably would have tapped out, right? But the difference is a lot of times it's guesswork. Like I just sold one of the few cards I've sold in a while that was pretty good. I sold a Donald Trump rookie card.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
Now what set was that from?
1989 Rotten to the Core. So
Okay.
$1,000 for that set and the Trump and a 10. Okay. That was a $60 card a few years ago. So I just decided to test the market and put some stupid number on it and started getting some good offers, and then finally turned it in. I got offers up to 750. I was like, 1,000 was kind of what I was hoping for, just for the hell of it, and put it at buy it now 1,000. And what's kind of funny is a guy approached me, and right after I did that, and he wanted to pay 850. Fine, we'll do 850. He couldn't come up with the money. So he says, "Oh, back to 1,000." I said, "Okay, fine." Next day, I'm sitting here at the house. I'm working from home. All of a sudden, my phone goes off. Cha-ching, cha-ching. I go, Trump just sold for $1,000. Pretty cool. So I think what you just have to do is it's guesswork. And then it just becomes an issue of like, what are your resources? I mean, if I'm chasing a Brock for 7 years, I'm not too worried if I lose a few $100. But
right.
I'm not going like 1,000.
Yeah, one of my biggest problems that I have is, a lot of people have buyer's remorse. I suffer from the opposite. I have seller's remorse. Like I am afraid to sell something because I'm like, oh man, what if I sell it now and it keeps going up, after I sell it. So I just don't sell it. I buy stuff to sell and then I never sell it and it just sits here.
Well, it sounds like you're building a lot of equity, because I got to tell you something. I'm one of the few people over the years that were wrestling like aficionados that was willing to run 99-cent auctions. Okay. I can't tell you how many times that, because I don't show my auctions. There's never been any funny business. I mean, ever. Wouldn't dream of it. This isn't like when all of a sudden there's a zero feedback bidder that's, taking this thing to levels we can't imagine, right?
Right.
Auctions a lot of times go off a lot lower than buy it nows because you need 2 aggressive bidders to meet that apex. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I can't tell you how many times. Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say Brock. So I have a one of his platinums in a 10. It was a BGS 9.5, and I'm a PSA collector, right? So I looked at it, I said, this thing is totally gem mint. I bid 175, I won it for 77, right? So had that been a buy it now and they put it at 200 and it was a buy it now with no best offer, I would have paid 200. Instead, I paid 77, right? So I cracked it out, sent it to PSA, and I'll crack out a BGS card that I feel confident, no problem. It gets the 10, now it's in my collection, right? So the thing with auctions is a lot of times they go so much lower than what they could. And so many times people buy cards from me that I auctioned off over the years. And I kid you not, the second they get it in hand, they list it for like 2 or 3 times what they paid. And a few days later, I look and I'm like, damn it. I sold it to you for 44 and you got 100.
Now, do you have a preference between BGS and PSA?
I'm PSA.
I don't even like I just don't like the way it looks in a BGS slab. I mean, maybe I'm a snob, but I just like the way it looks in a PSA slab.
Well, I'll tell you something. The nice thing about PSA is it looks very official, right? They stack well. we all grew up flipping cards through our hands. So, like, I've got a stack of them right here. If I really want to, I can kind of thumb through them. I think the holder doesn't take away from the card. It's very aesthetically pleasing. But I'll tell you something, it really has nothing to do with any of that. What happened was um, in 2009, into early 2010, you know, really in probably 5 and 6, I bought some BGS. I bought some an '89 Upper Deck, two of them. So I went out one night, got super super drunk, and I woke up the next morning and I bought two BGS 95 Griffey Juniors. Right?
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, I was like, oh shit, I just spent some. You know, when you wake up and you're like, I think I did something last night, and in that case, fine, I bought them, whatever. Well, I wasn't hip to like subgrades, and I didn't realize that if you bought a non-495 that it was going to sell at a big discount. And I bought some months later, because remember, Beckett took over as the top grader in the 2002 to, let's say, 2006 timeframe. They were their cards sold for more, right? So then I bought a Roger Clemens 85 Topps Tiffany, and once again bought a shitty one. It was like 3 9s and an 8.5. So shame on me. And so anyway, what happened was a couple years later, I started trying to like just track like what are my cards doing, and I was like, man, these Griffey Jr. PSA 10s, they're crushing these BGS 95s. So then in 09 and 010, what happened is when I decided to get serious about the Wrestling All-Stars, that I was going to make a real run at this, I just did a lot of searches, and I saw that it wasn't even debatable. PSA had drastically more market share, and PSA on average had drastically higher selling prices. So it wasn't even just an issue. I don't like the clunkiness of the Beckett slab. I just think it's too big and clunky. But the difference is it was all money. I was saying, okay, where are we going with this? If I'm going to take a shot, if I'm going to put money behind this venture, where's it going to be? And you saw the PSA set registry. It wasn't, it was just huge. And you've got guys like, my wrestling stuff's obviously, you got a pretty expansive collection, but it's nothing compared to baseball. There's some of these guys out there. You take a guy, let's see, trying to think of his name off the top of my head. He's a big attorney. He's got the top 50.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Okay. Yeah.
Not Marshall Fogel, but he's got a mantle. But there's another guy that, this guy's collection it has to be $25 million or some, huge amount, right? So when I started looking at these guys' collections and saying, wait a second, they're not tying the money up with Beckett. They're not tying the money up with SGC. So for me, it was all money. And it just was like, they've got the brand and the cards go for more. So that was the direction I was going. And, I like PSA better. I think with the wrestling cards I collect, they're, much tougher in terms of the grading, but it didn't start that way. It was all just, where can we take this?
Yeah. From what I know, like super modern cards, apparently BGS is the preferred, grader. And then anything from like 1950 to maybe like 2005, it's PSA. And then anything early is like SGC. Just from like the groups that I've been in, that appears to be what people prefer. Well, I don't know why. I don't exactly know why, but
SGC, they present well, and a lot of those older cards, they do sell well. But I'll tell you something. So many of those collectors. So I don't know. Are you on Net 54?
No, I don't know. Okay. What is it?
Net 54 is the sort of predominant pre-war message board, right?
Okay.
So I have some pretty active threads in their wrestling section. Okay. And they get a lot of eyeballs. But they are, when it comes to pre-war cards, that is by far the most active message board. Okay. And a lot of those guys love SGC, and it breaks their heart when they see the PSA cards selling for 2 times, 3 times as much. One of the things people have to understand is like take sneakers. I don't want to minimize it, too much, but Nike Air, I've been wearing Air Max since I was 17. I have not bought a different pair of like sneakers to wear 24 years in a row.
Right.
Now, you could argue that Under Armour's better. You could argue that Reebok's better. You could say that Adidas or New Balance. I mean, you can pick anything you want, but the brand image of Nike consistently stayed strong. And what has Nike done? It's got more and more and more expensive. They started at 130, now they're like 230. So PSA, where they were smart, if you talk to their CEO Joe, he doesn't sit there and tell you that, oh, we only have the best graders. Okay. Now they're very confident in their graders, but they don't say it's the best. But what they do is they built the brand. It's very much about exposure, the set registry, and for whatever reason, collectors have gone that route. And so for me, I think that you need to think, if you're going to get cards graded, why would you not get them graded where they have their biggest bang for your buck? And so a lot of times people will like take a Hogan, like let's say, I have, and this is pretty cool. I don't know what it's going to grade, but I'll show you this one. I just got this one.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Look at that bottom centering. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yep.
You see how there's a lot of space at the bottom? Right?
Yeah.
Well, you just don't see that in a Hogan. Okay. Well, you could send it to BGS, right? And maybe you get a better grade, right? And so maybe there's some potential arbitrage. But if you send it to PSA and you get a good grade, you maximize your value, right? So there's a lot of times people send borderline cards to other graders, and then they send their top card to PSA because, take like a Magic Johnson rookie with Larry Bird. A BVG 9.5 is like $6,000, okay? Well, a PSA 10 is like $120,000. So think about that. Like if you're just, if the goal is to maximize value, where's the maximum, where do you maximize the value? If you can
right.
Say 10. I mean, it's just basic.
Yeah, I mean I like the grading. I like the fact that they were able to take all these cards that everyone said were worthless and figure out a way to make them worth something. Right? Is it kind of now? Is it? Do you compare it at all to the mortgages during the mortgage crisis, where they just took junk and figured out a way to make them valuable?
I don't know. I mean, I never really thought about that. Let me show you the card. So, but here's a card that's not worth that much money, but you never see this. Okay, that's a Randy Savage 10.
Okay, wait. What is that from?
This is so. Unfortunately, they've been labeled 86 Peachy. They're actually 85 because this set is based on WrestleMania 2, and anybody that knows wrestling history knows that Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy went toe-to-toe in April for WrestleMania 2 in 86. Well, so take this Savage, right? So this is not a valuable card, just a few $100. I bought 36 sets vending from a guy in Canada. I bought countless sets on eBay. This thing came, and this is no exaggeration, from a $2 lot of 24 cards that came to me in a team bag. I saw them in the auction. They were sort of laid out. I said, oh, man, that Savage has got the centering of a 10. I literally, so this is a good story. So I went to work to show one of my coworkers. I had some other stuff coming back in the mail. I opened them in the office. I literally freaked out because I said, this is a 10. I literally put it right back. I drove home to put it in a card saver. I mean, I went to work with a card saver, but I just didn't think it, it's $2, right?
Right.
So I went home, I put it in a card saver. I sent that baby to PSA, got the first 10. Now there's 4 of those in a 10. Okay. And that's not to say there's not more, but let me tell you something. You search around for Opeachy 85 Series 2. Good luck finding them perfectly centered with razor sharp corners. It just doesn't happen. So I think the thing is that there's, to compare it back to the mortgage crisis, there are probably cards that are ninja loans, okay? But then there's others that are prime borrowers. Like I was somebody in the mortgage crisis that, so in 2005, the condo I'm sitting in that I paid off, right? I put 5% down. I did some super dumb shit. I took cash out when it went up on value. I did remodeling. I lost 20,000 trading options in the stock market. Definitely at the time was devastating because that was a lot of money at the time for me. It just was one of those things that just happened. And it was like, I can't believe this just happened, but it happened. So then I said, well, I've got to put this into a fixed rate mortgage. So then I had to pay the closing cost. And, I would have benefited because at the time, adjustable rate mortgages went down to like 2%. Instead, I thought I was doing the smart thing. I locked it in at 6.25. Well, when the market got cut in half, Dave was still paying his mortgage,
Right.
So the difference is if you want to compare it to the market, there were prime properties, okay, that came back and didn't come back like halfway. They came back and doubled, So you're going to see, I'll give you an example. Take the condo market, right? My condo, it has never recovered. It's never been as high as it was in 2005. I've put since then easily, 70 grand into it, and it's still not worth what it was. Okay. So you could say it's a terrible investment. But if you bought houses in Winter Park on the lake, where that's where I work in Winter Park, I mean, dude, some of that stuff's double what it was in 05. So I think what people have got to understand is you're going to have breakout items like the Derek Jeter SP, where you can't sort of figure out how on earth it went to 167,000. It's not going back to 20 grand.
Right.
Okay. And it went like literally, I mean, we are in a really challenging scenario right now. One just sold for 167,000. Now, somebody could say it's shilled. Somebody could say that, somebody has a vested interest, whatever. The point is that the market sometimes just decides that a certain item is awesome. Now, I don't own a lot of that stuff. Wrestling stuff is while it's great to me and maybe you think it's fun, these aren't platinum items across the board. Okay, but they're not priced like platinum.
Right.
If a Randy Savage is $200 and there's only 4 of them in a 10, I mean, what is it going to drop to 150? Like life goes on. You know what I mean? I'm more inclined to think it's going to 500. But the point is that I get where you're going. I mean, there is some stuff out there where people are going to get hurt, and it's happened already some. But you take a Scottie Pippen rookie card, $50 to $700 in like 2 months.
That's insane.
Well, that's a level of price appreciation that once the supply comes in, it doesn't go from 700 to 650. It goes from 700 to 400 like instantly. And I don't want to be the guy because, I mean, listen, I don't know where the top is. I'm not even trying to say I do. But that's a card. If you had to pick a card that's a mortgage crisis card, I would say that's a prime candidate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at some of the 87 Tops baseball where they made 2 million of them, and then all of a sudden they're going for like a Bo Jackson that was paying $20 for, and a PSA 10 is now 120. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. They didn't just take half of them out of the marketplace. But at least with wrestling, they're pretty much limited.
For y'all, I said I was going to have some drinks on air.
Nice. Hey, so talk to me about the 85 Tops because I'm kind of confused. So 85 Tops wrestling is my favorite set, right? It's the one that I had when I was a kid.
Yep.
But you were saying that there's an OPG Series 2, and I saw one on eBay. Was there a Topps Series 2 as well, or was it only OPG?
No. So there's a 85 Topps. It's got the yellow and blue Hogan, right?
Yep.
There's a 85 OPG. It's the same set. Now, for whatever reason, those are not very much appreciated, kind of like when you look at baseball, like how much rarer sometimes OPG is. I don't know why with the wrestling, because I mean, it is so much harder to find the 85 OPG Series 1. Like you'll see wax boxes of 85 tops, and they're plentiful. Now the demand for those has been going up and up and up, right?
Sure.
And I think it makes sense. They're still pretty cheap, relatively speaking, but the O-Pee-Chee is hard to find. So what happened is, for whatever reason, they made a Series 2, and they're a yellow box. I would, these boxes are like $400 now. Dude, you get killed when you open them. Wax stains. I mean, it's a nightmare, right? So the only luck I've ever had with O-Pee-Chee were vending. But that said, the Series 2 it's a neat set because it's based around WrestleMania 2.
Okay.
So there's some cool shots. I'll tell you something. So people talk about condition sensitivity. There are 2 cards in the O-Pee-Chee Series 2 that I would put in the top 10 most condition sensitive cards from the 80s from any set. Hercules Hernandez and King Kong Bundy. Okay. Literally almost every single one is 80-20 to 95-5. I mean, you just can't believe how bad the centering on these 2 cards are. So the Hercules, and let's face it, it's not like Hogan where people send in a lot, right? But if there's a guy like me out there that's trying to get nice ones, I'll track them down. The highest grade is an 8. Okay. There is a 7.5 on a King Kong Bundy. I sent in a 7. It has the best centering I've ever seen, but it had kind of messed up corners. So I got a 7. You just can't imagine how difficult these are. They're incredible, but there's not a lot of potential in that set because there's not a lot of rookies. There's a Savage. There's the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith, but
Yep.
That's just not huge money stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I just love that year. So if I could find that would be cool. I wish that you would stop buying up the 82 All-Stars because every time I go on eBay, they're never there.
I'm not buying them much. I buy it. I buy, I do have some really nice ones I'm sending in. I bought a complete set from a guy in Canada recently. And then I did buy last week the set that went for $725. That's where that Hogan came from. I have to tell you, I have not been more excited about a buy on eBay probably ever because we were at my wife's mom's house and
right,
we're just social distancing for 2 months, and so I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm kind of bored, and people don't understand, man. I'm hunting nonstop, so you always have to know that Peck 100 on eBay's looming. I'm always out there. So I looked at this set. I took one look at the Hogan. I was like, you can't be serious. Look at this centering.
It was a raw. So it was raw,
It's still
right?
Raw. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sending this baby into PSA on a higher service level. I mean, it has potential. I think you can't get ahead of yourself, but
yeah,
it says it's going to be a good one. I got an Andre in there that's probably a 6.6 to 6.5. The Flair is an 8 to a 9. There's a Pedro Morales that's a 9. I mean, there's a Tony Atlas that's probably a 9. I mean, this was a beautiful set. And so what I found funny was, so I scooped that baby up in 45 seconds. I saw it and I said, man, this is, so the second I bought it, I sent her a message. I said, how are you shipping this? I will mail you card savers if need be. And she goes, oh, we can put in sheets or we can put in individual holders. And so it came in not card savers, but top loaders.
Okay.
And, that's tough because they slide up and down. And
right.
Fortunately, there was no damage, but I opened it up Friday morning. I've got a mailman, Mike. He's the best. I meet him at the neighborhood behind me, and I get it at 9 in the morning, and I'll text him pictures leading up to it. I say, hey, Mike, we got a big one coming, and so I got it, and I was like, this is a win. But on the margin, you don't see me buying much. You just really don't. I'm not. I've probably bought, I don't know, like a handful of cards this year. This ain't me driving these prices. The person who's driving the market's Gary V.
I know.
Okay, he's driving every market, and so
Now, have you talked to him? Because I know he's always looking for wrestling cards.
I've sold him a couple cards.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I have, yeah. Uh, I've never talked to him personally. We've done instant message through Twitter.
Yep.
I think Gary Vee is a controversial figure because if you own cards, you like Gary Vee.
He's good for the market. I mean, he's great for the market. Absolutely. I mean, it's
Well,
good for the hobby.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I understand the pros and cons because, like we talked about before, it's easy to move the market, right? We know that. There's not enough supply. There's not the ability to put 50,000 shares behind, the order to roadblock the market. Okay. But I watched, I guess a week ago, sitting here with the wife, and she came home. I think it was the first night she went to be able to go get her nails done. So I really don't even know how I stumbled on it, but I watched a Gary Vee interview from March. Okay. And I was very pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but I was happy to see him showcase an 82 Hogan because obviously I like that. But
Was it the one that you sold him?
no, he bought another one. I did
Okay.
sell him one. So I've sold him 2 cards. I did sell him an 82 SGC 8, and it just happened to be what I had. And I had posted a picture of some Hogans a few months, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months back, and he started blowing up my instant messages like, can you sell me one? Can you sell me one? And I was at the gym, and I was like, I was like, yeah, I guess I'll sell him one. So, and he got a good price. I gave him a price because I think there's also a challenge. You don't want to try to like dick a guy over and be like, well, I know you're, $100 million guy. I'm going to try to scalp you. I tried to get a fair price. So anyway, I was watching his, it's like a 2.5 hour Gary Vee thing. And he makes some unbelievably compelling points. One of the things we all have to understand. So, and I don't want to out a dealer, but I was told yesterday that the Michael Jordan green prism or green precious metals that went for 350,000.
Oh, right. Yep.
Word on the street is he bought it himself. Okay. Now, I can tell you this right now. If I'm Michael Jordan and I'm a billionaire, I might buy a $350,000 card myself.
Oh, you're saying Michael Jordan bought it?
That's the word on the street.
Oh, okay.
Now, let me just make that clear. David here, I don't know, but the guy who told me, I feel pretty confident that that's real, right? But think about that for a second. We all sit here and say, oh, that auction was shilled. Who would be dumb enough to pay $350,000 for this green Michael Jordan from 1997? What if he wants to?
Right.
I mean, the higher the price goes, these guys get more turned on. So it's like, it's not an issue of like, oh, I'm wasting money. It becomes an issue of this is a status symbol and it's 50,000, right? So Gary was talking about, he gets text messages from P. Diddy talking about maybe getting into cards. Okay. You saw Justin Bieber on his Instagram, showcase his Pokemon set. So I think one of the things that everybody has to keep in mind is that as much as it feels not normal, and so me and you who've been, like I have money, but I'm not like super rich, right? I mean, I'm rich compared to like a lot of people, but I'm incredibly poor compared to Gary Vee, right? Well, the reality of it is that there are whales out there that have a lot of resources. And if these people decide that they want to buy trading cards, the market's going to change in price. And, if you look at the modern stuff, I would argue the reason you've seen such an insane expansion in price is they artificially created scarcity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, like, if you look at a Mike Trout, let's say it's numbered to 5. Okay. I can't in any capacity say that I would ever have predicted it'd be $600,000. But let me tell you something. When somebody tells their friend that they have a $600,000 baseball card, they say, holy shit, that's awesome, right?
Right,
The
right.
Mickey Mantle 52 tops in a PSA 10, that's a $10 million baseball card. Why? Because a hedge fund manager that's worth $2 billion could be on their 64th floor condo in Manhattan with the Mickey Mantle showcased almost like a Picasso. And people walk up and they go, oh my God, this is a Mickey Mantle. Like, tell me how much this is worth. 2 million sounds shitty. 10 million sounds awesome. So there's a lot of these apex items that once they become status symbols, I call it the horses left the barn, and they just become, a big deal. Wrestling, look, I don't pretend none of that stuff's ever gonna, be like a Mickey Mantle, but I mean there are sort of apex items, right? But they're never gonna reach that because wrestling collectors are not in mass, super rich, and there's not the lineage where you could have a guy, not Charles Merkel was the name I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay, that guy has spent so much money on cards. So if he has to go drop $700,000 on a card, well, it sits a long $25 million worth of cards. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's just that the market's not going to totally die. I mean, there's going to be stuff that gets killed, but I think in the big picture, like the super premium items that are like status symbols, I'm actually very bullish on.
Oh, absolutely. I think anything that was hot before will stay hot, and the stuff that was considered part of the junk era is gonna it will go down, in my opinion.
Well, it might, and there's a discussion on the collectors universe message board right now. So take a 87 tops Mark McGuire. There's a lot of them. So
Unbelievable.
it goes from 20 to 120. You're
Right.
up six-fold.
Now it's 200.
Okay, no, okay, now we're up ninefold, right? I mean 900%, right? What's going to happen when these things peak? When that whatever that number is, it's going to drop back, right? I'll give you a junk wax card, and I think at the moment I'm not necessarily looking that smart. So I had self-subbed a 89 Fleer Griffey Jr. Okay.
Okay.
So I've got, I was a baseball card collector just like everybody else, and it was my original 89 Fleer Griffey in 9 pocket sheets. I was looking through them, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I said, oh, this one's pretty nice. This is a 10. I think this is a 10. So pulled it out, put in a card saver. It's a $40 card. I'm thinking, okay, a nine is like 10 or 12 bucks. The grading fee's $8. Okay. If it gets the 9, it was a good gamble. If it gets the 10, you're happy. It sat in my vault. I've got this little vault, and so anyway, safe, whatever you want to call it. So I didn't even think anything of it. I start reading these message boards. Oh, Griffey cards are starting to heat up. 70, 90, 120, 250. So I get on eBay. I was like, I'm getting on eBay that night. I listed at 225, and I honestly, I pulled the trigger too early. I got 189 for it. Okay, the card had been $40 forever.
And it was a PSA 10?
Yeah, PSA. Now, this is just not the glossy.
Yeah.
The Fleer, okay? Now, you're seeing still some sales pretty close to that, but you'll see the occasional sale at like 159. So it's already cracking. You know what I'm saying? You're already seeing some people willing to take less.
Man, I gotta start sending. I've never sent anything in. I just cracked open an 89 Flair wax box, and I think I pulled 4 Griffies.
Well, let me tell you something. If you can find one that's 50-50 centered,
yep,
no chipping on the back, that's not actually that condition sensitive of a card. You should, because
how long does it take you to get them back when you send them in?
We're at a point right now with this COVID shit.
Yeah.
Okay. PSA's backlog is so part of the other reason I remain bullish on the card market is so PSA in 2010 was grading about 1.6 million cards a year. It's up to 2.8 million. Okay. People have no idea how much additional interest has come into cards. I mean, it's kind of shocking. So once again, we can debate prices, like, you know, there's one-offs, right? But there's a tidal wave of buyers. You know, you look at some of these bid lists, I'll give you an example. So Mike Tyson, and, you know, we need to show off another card. Let me look at my stack here. I pulled some cool shit, and this right here this might actually be, it's close, but this might be my most expensive card.
Really?
Yeah, this is the Tyson 10. This is the Italian version. You want to see the back?
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is a pop 3, and, you know, it's a serious, very serious card. So when you look at Tyson, so Tyson is also in this set that's a board game called Question of Sport from the UK, and it's came out in early 87. I bought a bunch of these raw. They're playing cards now, just mind you. These aren't like wax pack cards. They came in a playing card deck. And I bought 5 of them, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago for like $18 a piece, okay? Sent in the first 2. I got a 9 and a 9. I sold one for $80. It took me like 2 months to get it to sell. This is a couple years ago. The other day, 2 days ago, one went for $337 and a 9. Okay, that's not the part that's shocking. I mean, it's shocking. But a year ago, there would have been maybe 18 to 20 watchers. So I'm real big on going to watchcount.com. I want to see how many eyeballs are looking at the cards. Now, it's not a direct correlation.
Right.
But I'll tell you this right now. It's kind of like stocks. When you start seeing momentum, when you start seeing early bids, when you see the bid list fill up, and then all of a sudden the watchers are growing, you know, it's going to get hot. And so watchcount.com is a great spot to go find that stuff. There was 86 watchers on this card. Okay. It exploded into the finish, went for $337. Now, I don't think it necessarily maintains that price. Time will tell. But we're dealing with an expansion of buyers in the market right now that's massive. Like it's almost, you can't quantify it. And you know, that's good and bad. I think it's going to lead to your point in some ways, like the mortgage crisis, where you had all these speculators. Like, I'm a collector. Okay. I'm not suggesting, I've never said I don't like money. I obviously, like, I want the card to go up. Like, you take this Tyson right here. The first BGS 9.5 just sold for $7K the other day. I paid $2K for this one. One of the other guys just listed his for $17,250. He's obviously trying to, you know, he's trying to find a sucker, I suppose. It's easily a $7,000 card that was a $2,000 card. Okay.
Right.
Well, that's not going down. Mike Tyson's not going down. And so when you have the rare stuff like that, you know, it's probably, I mean, eventually it's going to be 10,000. But the thing is that back to your point, when you get to the super, super common stuff that a guy like you could be sitting at home and he sees that a Griffey goes for 200 and he goes, okay, well, I got 4 of these that are really, really beautiful copies. I'm going to send these in at $9 a piece. I'm going to do a bulk sub and it might take me 6 months, but whatever. Well, you're going to get some flow of the population increase, right? We know that, you know, but it is shocking, honestly, how many more buyers are in the market. I mean, these bid lists, like there was a McGuire the other day that went for 3,600, and
wow,
shame on me. I totally screwed up in 2011. I sold cards to buy my wife a purse. I sold a Griffey Glossy 10 here, and I sold a PSA 9 McGuire Tiffany for like $120. They're like now $1,000. So that kind of sucks. But here's the thing. There was 36 bidders on that card. Okay. There was like 300 watchers. So I think what people have to understand is, like Gary Vee predicted, the sneakerheads have moved in. And I think other people, when they see prices moving up, they get turned on. So we're going to deal with, whether anybody likes it or not, there's going to be high volatility for some time here on cards to the upside. So, you may be right. September, October is maybe when the peak happens and then it falls apart. I don't know. But dude, I got to tell you something. I'm seeing activity that you can't wrap your head around.
Well, see, here's the thing. I was under the impression that, and a lot of my friends who work for brokerage firms would tell me that when the market crashes, which was happened, memorabilia is one of the first things that goes. But that didn't happen. It actually did the opposite, right? The market crashed, people lost their jobs, and the memorabilia market was like going up 300%. And I was like, what is going on right now?
Well, I'll tell you something. It is defying sort of the premise of standard economics, right? You got 40 million people all of a sudden without a job. Okay. So I think there is a sense of like, how on earth can this be happening? But here's what my rationale is: this. The barriers to entry for cards are very low.
Yep.
Okay. So if you take let's just say you bought 5 of those Mark McGuire's a month ago for 80. So you can buy 2 shares of Apple for $600. So it's not the guy. I mean, what's happening is it's a lot of small time investors that are.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. But
Yep.
let's so I'm a broker, right? I don't buy 2 shares of Apple for anybody. Nobody that deals with Dave is buying 2 shares. Okay. But let's say that you're the college kid on Robinhood, and he goes, okay, I can buy 2 shares of Apple. Well, if Apple goes from 300 to 400, I make $200, and that's a huge move because Apple at $300 is a 1.2, 1.3 billion, no, trillion. Sorry, my bad. $1.3 trillion market cap. Okay. So a 10% move is $140 billion. Like people, they forget that the price of a stock means nothing. Okay. So people see Apple at 300 and Amazon at 2,400. It doesn't matter. Apple is still slightly bigger than Amazon, yet the stock price is 8 times as big. Okay. So that said, that same person could take their $600 and go buy a Kuna rookies. Okay. They put their 600 in, and a week later, they're worth 1,200. Okay. And they sell. And now, minus eBay fees and shipping, they've got, let's say, 1,100. Well, they take that same 1,100 and they put it in, what's the guy, Luca. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then Luca, he doubles the next week. Now they've got, $2,200, right? So you can get fast action in cards. And one of the things Gary Vee talked about, and this is when I sort of bought into the concept that the market was going to explode, and I don't pretend to know when it stops, was he started talking about the sneakerheads, okay? And most of us have no clue about sneakerheads. I never gave the concept of buying shoes to flip.
Right, me either.
Okay, just means nothing to me. Well, in Atlanta, there are 50,000 people that are part of the sneakerheads group on Facebook. There are thousands of transactions in Atlanta alone that take place on the Atlanta Facebook sneakerhead site every single day. So probably 4 months ago, I had 7 months ago, I had a client who his son's 19. And he wanted me to open up a Roth IRA for him. So I said, okay, all right, Clay, we did the interview. And what happens is I'm 41, but I'm not, I'm a young 41, I'm not you look like you're a young 41 or 2.
Trying to be.
Trying to be, right? We're not trying to be too old. So to try to for lack of a better term, be cool with Clay, I'm like, hey, so what's up? Tell me what you do, blah, blah, blah. Well, he starts telling me about flipping sneakers in Atlanta. He goes to school in Georgia. So I said, oh, dude, I was like, I heard this guy, Gary Vee, is talking about 6 months earlier. Because remember, he was on the Rich Eisen show a year ago.
Right.
And these sneakerheads were coming. So I said, tell me about this. I need to learn about this. These guys, it's like IPOs, okay? They legitimately they have these algorithmic based websites where they are able to buy the sneaker the second it launches, and it's worth like 3 or 4 times the amount online immediately. Okay. They sell them before they even have them in hand. Okay. So what Gary Vee said was that that market was kind of plateauing because there were just less and less sneakers. And these young kids, I can call a 20-year-old kid in college, they believe in flip life. They were going to come into cards. And I think that right there is the number one reason that basketball in particular has
Yep.
gone berserk, was because these same people, they're like, oh, I'm going to take my 1,000 and I'm going to turn it into 2,000. You know what I'm saying? And so wrestling doesn't have, like, there are, and I promised my buddy Rob I'd give him a shout out. You've got, guys like Rob England, wrestling card collector, that wrestling card king, sorry. Um, Rob he has been the man at getting probably more cards graded the first time than anybody.
Okay.
There's not speculation in that market like that. You don't have, maybe there's a tiny amount, but most of the product, when you get rare cards in wrestling, they just land in collections for the most part, and they just never surface again. I mean, few of them come back to market, but when you think about this like modern basketball product where there's a lot of it, they buy it and it's on eBay like a week later.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
Well,
not long term. That's not that healthy.
I also think the lack of sports. I think a lot of people that were betting on sports are buying cards now. So it'll be interesting to see when sports comes back what happens. But you are right with the wrestling. That is interesting. I mean, it seems like a pretty stable market, right? I mean,
It's not, but we haven't. I mean, we've seen some astronomical price increases over the years, right? And now I will say, in the last 6 months, once Gary Vee started showcasing some of the cards on his Twitter, um, it's definitely helped. I don't think you could, I mean, he's helped every card, like, and I think that, so like we met on Twitter, right?
yeah,
Okay. I don't get, I don't get like some exorbitant amount of likes. I mean, everyone, I have to hashtag and like, and tag this person. I mean, get hope for retweets for anybody to even see my stuff, right?
I know it's tough.
But Gary Vee, when he puts something on Twitter, okay. So I did a sports podcast, a few months ago, and the guy that does the show, he's friend. I hate to say friends, but he's friendly with the guy, and he sent Gary a direct message, and Gary retweeted it, and instantaneously the number of page views skyrockets. Right?
Right.
He has 2.1 million Twitter followers. I mean, people just have got to understand this explosion of activity on Twitter has really driven the card market. And so I personally believe that the social media aspect is the primary driver. And here again, we may see people tire of it. I don't know. But I can tell you this right now, you go on, take that guy, Nat Turner, which is, he's a philanthropist. He's incredibly rich. He sold his business for, like $2 billion. I mean, he's got a partner. I mean, the guy's loaded. And he buys those insane $900,000 LeBron cards. He puts them on Instagram. So if somebody thinks that that is not driving the status of it, they're wrong. I mean, it's like I bought, so some people would think this is stupid. Some people laugh. I bought my wife a Birkin. Okay. So, a lot of dudes are out there, they buy their wife a Coach or maybe a Gucci. Maybe they upgrade to a Chanel. Well, a Birkin bag, a Hermes Birkin, is like the apex of purses, right? They're not that. I mean, the quality's good, right? But the only reason these purses are worth something is because you can't get them, and all the bitches look at another chick waltzing around with a Birkin, and they say she's got a Birkin. right? So it's a status symbol. So I bought this purse, okay? And you have to legitimately, they have to call you. So you have to get in good with the Hermes store. So we live in Orlando. There's a Hermes at the mall at Millennium, right? So my wife's done, she did a birthday party for a friend there where they did like some shopping and, all the girls dropped a couple grand, right? So, heavy spending, right? She bought a few more things. So when they call you, you don't have you can't really say no. Like, because if they call you a few times and offer you the purse when it comes in, if you say no, then now you're just sort of blacklisted, right? So we had kind of agreed that it was looking like she was going to get a shot at a Birkin, and I said, okay, babe, we'll work this out. I'm at work. Unfortunately, I get the call, honey, they have the Birkin. Now, I obviously could have said yes or no. We ended up getting a shot at one of the most marketable bags. It's the right size, the right color. So I bought this bag, okay, and with tax, it was $11,600. Okay, so people say, "Holy shit, who in their right mind would spend that on a purse?" $20,000 is the cheapest you can get that brand new, okay, unless you get it from the store. It's instantly worth more money, right?
Right.
Okay, it's not. I mean, I get it. Some people say it's insane. Probably the only reason I was willing to do it is I knew I was walking into equity. But the
Yeah.
point is that when you have people like Gary V and Nat Turner showcasing this stuff online, it makes it more desirable. So the guys out there, me and you and the next person, say, I want that. It becomes status. And so I think what the real issue is like a Jordan rookie. You can't show that shit to nobody and then say, well, dude, cards are stupid. No way. A Jordan rookie is like, it's badass. I mean, we can disagree on what the price should be, but you show that to anybody and they say, that's awesome. So the higher
Right.
the price goes, the more people want it. And I think that's what's happening.
I have a raw Jordan rookie. I should probably send that in someday.
Dude, you really should.
I literally have never sent anything in. I just have all the cards that I had when I was growing up.
Right, but take your Jordan rookie. So like me and you were into cards, right? Me and you
Yeah.
were wrestling. So we could sit here and chat for 6 hours and right? You show a Jordan, like, so take a Jesse Ventura 85 tops, because Jesse, he's over on your left shoulder. Yeah, people say, oh, that's whatever. It's a $3 card if you're lucky. If it's a 10, maybe it's $60. You show them a Jordan rookie, it's like, whoa, it's a Jordan rookie.
I
Like
know.
it has some real cachet. And so I think one of the things that happens, and this is the reason I really believe I'm convinced personally that high grade cards, most of it is bragging rights. Just like a super refractor. What the companies did is they said, okay, we're going to give one person the chance to say they own this card. So back to the Birkin example. My wife, she's in a, I went to get my haircut today. The magazine was in the hair salon. My wife's in the magazine. Okay. There she is standing there at this, event. She got the Birkin. How many chicks are open that magazine and say, oh, look at this bitch with the Birkin bag. Okay. That's the truth. It is what it is, right?
Right.
But I don't care. I mean, it's a non-event to us, but with chicks, it matters. So when you get online, some dude flashes a Jordan 10. Hey, you got instant street cred. It's a badass card.
Yeah. No doubt about that, man. Do you have any? What is your most? Do you have a most desirable card that you're still looking to get?
No, but I'll tell you, I'll show you one that is probably the one that I spent the most time to get. This is a good card.
Wow. Is that a 9 or is that a 9 or a 10?
9.
Wow.
And so one of the things about Andre is, so these wrestling all-stars, they came in sealed sets. Okay. 1 through 36. Andre's on top every time. So you can just sort of imagine that the corner damage to Andre is a lot higher than it is to a card that's in the middle of the deck. So probably, and I have a ton of Andres simply because I bought Beck at 9s, I bought Beck at A5s, I did everything early on. So you go back to 2010, 2011. I mean, dude, people think I buy a lot of wrestling all-stars. It's not true. Back then, I bought a ton. Now, I used to have people contact me back then on eBay and say, will you please stop buying? You know, can you let me win some? And, I was like, well, I'm not done buying. We're going big on this stuff. So that said, I'll never forget 2011, the first Andre 9 came up. Okay. And no, 2012. Sorry. So PSA, I did an interview with PSA about my set, and it came out in 2012. So they did a SMR article on the cards, and I said at the time, I said, look, there's nobody that's ever going to create a better set than me, and that was, I believed it at the time, and 8 years later, we're still in the same position. But that said, I only had an 8 of an Andre. There were no 9s. So finally, the first Andre 9 hits. Now there's BGS 9s, and there's 9.5s. None of those will cross to a 10 at PSA. It's not even close. So that said, the 9 hits, and I was like, okay, I think I had said to somebody, I think the card could go for 2,000, right? So I wait to the very end, and I throw in like $2,082 or something, and I lose right at the end. And it was some guy from California that had like art and stuff, and he thought he was going to buy it, so he puts it on eBay at like 4,200 like a week later. And I'm just like, dude, you have no idea, there's nobody out there right now that was willing to pay what I was willing to pay. You basically screwed yourself. And he did. He ended up selling it to this guy, Joey Graben. And I'll give a shout out to Graben. He's got an unbelievably badass collection. He ended up buying it from the guy after the dude kind of puked it up, a year and a half later. But so I guess 6 or 8 months goes by, and when you're trying to buy the stuff up, you have to sort of make friends with dealers, that you have to, so I check the pop report every single day. I've checked the pop report on the Wrestling All-Stars every single day for over 10 years. And when stuff would pop up, I knew who was active submitting. And as soon as I'd see it, I'd email them and I'd say, dude, what's the scoop? You get these? And so second Andre hits, and I was fortunate enough, I had bought a collector out that had come on hard times. He had held these BGS cards, and I put them on eBay. Fortunately, they did a little better for me than they did for him. And that same week, I get the email, and the guy has the Pop 2 Andre. And so, I wanted to pay less, but I paid a high price at the time.
Yeah.
So, but that was the card that out of everything, I worked so hard, in terms of buying graded ones, cracking them. It was tough. I mean, I guess the other card is Kerry Von Erich. That's the other one I've got in the stack. I did everything to get a Kerry, and that one I bought as a 10. There's just some of this stuff like, they're tough. I mean, anybody who collects the stuff knows how tough some of these cards are.
What is the lowest graded card you have in the registry?
What do you mean by that?
When you register your set with PSA, you have to.
I have an 8.
Okay.
So if you go to the 82B, there is a guy named Ray Stevens. The card is off cut 70-30 every single time or worse.
Yep.
So admittedly, going back to your trim discussion.
Yeah.
If I ever see one of those in a 9, and it's got skinny borders, I would say it's trimmed, And so the thing with the Ray Stevens is it's impossible, like there's certain cards, the way they're cut off a sheet, that can't get a nice card. I have no idea why that card was cut the way it was. I actually have, um, I've got the only known 82A uncut sheet,
I was
and
going
I
to ask you about that.
yeah, I've got an 82B uncut sheet, and the 82B, if you look at the other side, doesn't really make any sense why the Ray Stevens is so hard. You know what I'm saying? Like the other side, that card has graded high. Don't know. I would put the Ray Stevens, we talked earlier about condition sensitivity. Ray Stevens, 82 All Star, top grades an 8. There will never be a 9 or a 10 that are natural. That's easily top 10 most condition sensitive cards from the 80s from any set.
Now, are you allowed to hand cut an uncut sheet and then submit that or no?
No, I don't want to tell you it couldn't happen because I think if people are being honest with themselves, if they look at history, PSA will be the first to tell you that while they don't grade, sheet cut cards, some sheet cut cards have made it through.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that because I was under the impression that a lot of the cards back then were hand cut, where they would just use the machine to cut the cards.
Well, they did, but I'm talking about
Oh,
me.
okay.
Like,
Right.
okay, I'll give you an example. Take an 86 Fleer sheet of basketball.
Yep.
Okay? If you know a person that runs a print shop that has a badass laser cutter in terms of that can say, okay, let's say the dimensions on the cards are, 2.5 by 3 3/8,
Right.
whatever it is. They can cut those, and BGS will grade sheet cut cards. They don't make any determination.
Okay.
PSA attempts to make a determination. Okay. So on a lot of cards, they can tell, but sometimes they can't, right? So for me, on the Wrestling All-Stars, there's various sizes of them. For me, the tell is if you take a Wrestling All-Stars 82 or 82A or B, 83, they're bigger, they're a different cut. If you hold it sideways, they will have an uneven cut. Okay. If I see an 82A that's cut four square sides, I don't like that card.
Really? That's interesting.
A bowed cut. Okay. And what had happened back then is, just like the O-Pee-Chees where they had whatever the blade they were using, create a rough cut. Whatever the blade they were using for these, they bow in. Now, I'm not talking about like the card goes in like an inch. I mean, sort of.
Right.
But I'm talking about if you hold it sideways, you will see this sort of slight downward shift. And that's what I'm looking for. So they have different sizes. But so in theory, let's just say my 82A sheet. Okay. Now it's got a few creases in it. So most of the key cards have little creases. So you wouldn't want to cut it up. But in theory, let's say it was in pristine condition. Somebody could try to cut it up and send it to the grading companies. And I don't know what would happen,
Yeah, see, I think it's a good debate because I look at like the LJN figures, right? They have the card on the back. Some people cut those out and submit it to PSA, and you try to cut it per.
No,
What's that?
they don't submit those for grade.
Yeah, they don't. I thought you can get those graded.
They get them signed.
Oh, they get them signed. Oh, interesting.
No, but I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, because aren't there some hand cut cards that they do grade?
Yes, there's plenty of hand cut cards. So like the first Andre card, is from '73 in a paper magazine.
Okay,
that is a hand cut card.
Okay, and I think the Tiger Woods was too, right, from the SI Sports Illustrated for Kids.
Well, that's a perforated card. So, so that you're supposed to gently tear apart.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
all right.
Your point's well taken. I mean, I think here's the real issue. Some people are like, I'm somebody that's not a fan of trimmed cards. Okay.
Well, me either. Right.
I just feel like that's a bad thing. Okay. There are collectors out there that don't care. They want it in the slab, right? With hand cut and perforated cards, okay, you have no other choice but to go that route. The reason I am not a fan of, let's say, sheet cut cards is, we'll just take the Andre just for argument's sake. You are battling a huge uphill battle on Andre. You've got to find the card that had the right centering. There are print issues where his hair is at. He's got the afro.
Yep.
So there's like an issue with, some of them have better print than others. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just part of, I mean, the people that made these, this wasn't like a high profile scenario. So then you've got the issue of corner damage. I mean, if you look, the average Andre is somewhere between a 4 and a 6. Well, it's a top card. Okay. You take the 82B, the Rick Martel. So the Rick Martel is probably my most condition sensitive rarity. And I've got the only 9 and the only 8. Okay. So there's a 1, 9, 1, 8. Why? Card is ridiculously tough because it's right on top and it has bad centering. So you have 2 huge issues. Well, if you take an uncut sheet and you don't have to deal with the uphill battle of the cellophane pack, it's cheating. It's just not. I mean, the whole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. So you like the it's the thrill of the chase, right? It's like the
you know what I'm saying? Like, you're trying
yeah.
to find that diamond in the rough.
It's like the 80 tops Ricky Henderson, which you cannot find that in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, well, even those. I mean, even if you find it in good shape, to find like a perfect one is
Right.
challenging. I mean, I don't know. I think that what I found with collectibles is everybody has a different opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think you just kind of have to, just stick with whatever works for you, So
Yeah.
for me,
Right.
I what works for me works for me. What works for you works for you.
So will you buy raw cards regardless of what they look like what the condition is, if the price is right or no, for your own collection?
Well, it depends. I mean, like, let's go back to, like, say, those Rax roast beef cards.
Yeah.
So I bought a sealed set from Scott, and I would say that was one of the most thrilling purchases I've ever made, because it took me forever, and I was emailing with him for a year and a half.
Really?
So I found out that he took the pictures, and so I had been reading his books, and I had a Bruiser Brody book.
Okay.
And I go, wait a minute, Scott Teal, this name's familiar. So I looked him up, his Crowbar Press, and I sent him an email. I said, hey, I saw your name on the back of some pictures of these Rax roast beef cards online. You know anything about them? Yeah, I took the photos. I still have a sealed set. And so,
wow.
Oh yeah, this was like, for a collector, like if you're going, like, I'm not into hunting, I'm not into fishing, but let's say you're going deep sea fishing, and you've got a goal to get a huge marlin or something.
Right.
This was like reeling in a marlin, and so my wife and I are driving out to dinner to the Capitol Grill, right? And so my buddy Rob and my buddy, this guy Greg Weiss, mentioned earlier, they don't, when something rare shows up, a lot of times people don't let everybody else know because they're zooming in on it. So
right.
Literally on the interstate on I-4, and my phone starts blowing up from Rob. You see these auctions? And they're just firing off. There's like, I don't know, like 10 seconds to go. And I was like, damn, you gotta be kidding me. I've looked everywhere for this David Schultz. And what had happened is some dude in Pensacola, Florida, had uncovered a house, and they cleaned out the closet and guns, and they found these wrestling cards, put them on eBay. And so they exploded. He had no idea why. He thought they were worthless, right? So the guy Bob from New York, and that's who I bought the 82 A and B sheets from, he's good buddies with David Schultz. So he was the guy that I had got in contact with, and we made the offer to Schultz, and Schultz told me to pound sand. But anyway, so Bob knew that David was willing to pay $200 for, this beat up copy.
Yep.
So he ends up winning for like 177. And I mean, when I get to dinner, and it sounds stupid. You're going out to a nice dinner with your wife, it's date night, but I'm like, damn it, I can't believe I missed this stuff. So I send a message to Scott Teal the next day and said, hey, check out these prices. This stuff's worth something. So not a week later, he goes on his Facebook page and he puts a picture of the sealed set. And I happened to be home from work that day. And now I'm quarantined. I've been working out of the house for 5-6 weeks, whatever it is. I literally legitimately have not taken off more than 3 days in a row in my entire career. Okay. Like when you're in the stock business and you have active clients, like money never sleeps. Just
right.
They don't give a shit that you want to relax at the beach. Okay. They're worried about their money. So, and that's just kind of part of the deal. So anyway, so I'm down at the pool. It's like 2:00 in the afternoon, Friday afternoon. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to have some cocktails down at the pool. I'll check my emails just gently. If anybody needs me, I've got the cell phone. All of a sudden, Scott puts the sealed set on his Facebook page. And I just started freaking out. And so I started instant message him, I want these. We got to do this. Come on, dude. It's like 2,000, 3,000. And he's like, whoa, slow down. So he goes, just give me a call. So we get on the phone and we worked it out, $2,000. So I get the pack that week and I just was scared to open them, but I was like, I just got to do it, And so that was one of those things where it's like, you can search high and low and you get more thrill out of finding something like that than you do like your cards going up. I mean, it was just awesome.
Yeah. That's all. That's a great story, man. Next time I talk, if I have a chance to interview Scott again, I'm going to ask him about that.
Yeah, he knows David. I mean, we're friends. And,
All right.
Scott is he's a great guy.
Yeah, no, he is. I just picked up the Tony Atlas book from him. So
well, the thing about Scott is that a lot of people don't realize how big wrestling was in the 70s and 80s. And so he's fun to talk to because one, he's just beyond a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
But two, it's neat when that somebody was there like on the ground floor. I mean, like today, like say Bruiser Brody, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. So take a guy like Bruiser Brody. Bruiser Brody in 1980 kicked the shit out of Dick the Bruiser in Indianapolis in the backstage. Okay. So earlier, like I didn't know who Dick the Bruiser was, but I learned about him through the cards and then you read books and stuff like that. Dick the Bruiser was a bad dude. Bruiser Brody beat the shit out of him. Dick the Bruiser came chasing after him with a gun. Okay. And so today, you think about like in 87 when Bruiser Brody was wrestling Lex Luger in Lakeland, Florida, and that infamous cage match where he won't sell the moves.
Okay? Oh, yep.
Okay. That doesn't happen today, right?
Right.
So wrestling back then is more of an outlaw deal. But like the guys, I mean, these dudes, like when you hear the stories of ring rats, I mean, it is very, very real, just like, so this is Michael Jordan, in 1994 played for the Birmingham Barons, right? My aunt, Nancy, had, fake boobs are now everywhere, right? But in the early 90s, fake boobs were just not that big a deal. She had these monster tits and is a pretty blonde lady. Well, we get tickets to go to the Birmingham Barons and sit like 3 rows back at Tinker Field, compliments of Michael Jordan. She's sending, messages between a bat boy back and forth, I think it's pretty clear that, she slept with the guy, right? 1998, 99. My twin brother was dating a chick and, her best friend, she got something from a basketball player, feels like it was him, right? Maybe it wasn't, but I don't want to like get sued, right? But she was a waitress at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, and Jordan, you know, you know, uh, she slept with Jordan, right? He bed so many women. Like people have no idea. This is before social media. This is before camera phones. Well, the wrestlers back then, I mean, these guys were movie stars walking around. So
Right.
Scott Teal, what's when you talk to him, he will go in depth about the ring rats and just how anybody associated with the product was like a superstar. And I mean, people, it was a big deal.
Yeah, no, this. I mean, it was a lot different time back then than it is today. That's.
Oh, today you get a camera phone.
I mean,
Like I'm taking a photo with Roman Reigns and I'm putting this on Instagram.
right.
He's getting a divorce.
All right. Well, listen. Before I let you get out of here, where did you grow up? You grew up in Florida.
Yeah, I've lived in Orlando my whole life.
So
And
who did you root for? Like, were you watching WWF as a kid?
yeah, so we didn't grow up with money, so I didn't have cable.
Okay.
And so Championship Wrestling from Florida was the primary organization.
Yep.
I don't know if I knew Hogan in late 84 or the first part of 85. Okay.
Okay.
But CWF. So Kevin Sullivan, does that
Yeah.
name ring? Yeah.
Yep.
Kevin Sullivan was the top heel in Florida. And so we would watch, we'd come home from church, and at noon on Sundays, CWF was on the local channel. And so in 85, sometime in 85 is when Saturday night's main event became big.
Oh yeah.
WWF on channel 2. So, we were kids, so we didn't stay up. But my dad, he'd VCR it. And what got me into wrestling, and, part of the reason it means so much to me and the reason I've just always stayed so connected to it is my dad in the 70s, Florida was a big wrestling territory. You could argue Florida was the top territory in the NWA because, the WWF or WWWF, they weren't really part of the NWA. They pulled out under Vince Sr., like I want to say in the early 70s. So they had their champion, right? But, you'd see cross promotional stuff because they did talent sharing. Well, in 84, even in 84, Ric Flair as the NWA champion, that was the number one belt in wrestling. You could argue that Hogan in New York was becoming a bigger star, but if you look at the wrestling magazines, everybody deemed the NWA champion the best. Well, in the 70s, my dad used to go to the Eddie Graham Sports Stadium, and you would have Harley Race, you would have Jack Briscoe, all the big guys from the time came through Florida. I mean, it was a hotbed. So he, was, we were working class. He was in construction. So let's see, in 84, he was only like 31 years old. So it was naturally, he was still interested in, wrestling.
Yeah.
And so we grew up watching it and loved it, So I started watching wrestling in diapers. I don't know if it was 83 or 84 when I started to be able to comprehend it, but it started there. And then Hogan, people don't understand, like, you didn't get to see Ric Flair on TV in Florida. You had to watch.
Oh, really?
You had to have either TBS, but if you had basic TV, you didn't get to see him.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't know who Ric Flair was. I only knew him from the magazines because we didn't have TBS either.
Yeah,
I grew up in Connecticut, so we only had the Superstars of Wrestling on Saturday mornings.
Well, I mean, it's a similar concept in the sense of regionality. I mean, but the difference is that you would watch CWF and they would do all these commercials for Ric Flair, but
really,
oh yeah, half the time was commercials for Starrcade and all these big pay-per-views, but you didn't get to see him, right? So we knew who he was, but you didn't really get to see him. He did interviews. If you look at 84, he did do some studio interviews, but you didn't get him wrestle on TV. And so the thing about I would argue what made WWF so popular is when they partnered with NBC. Now you took, you know, working class people like us that couldn't afford TBS, that couldn't afford pay per view, but now you get to see Hulk Hogan, and you know you could watch Saturday night's main event and see Hulk Hogan. And so, you know, I don't care what anybody says. I totally understand that, you know, Ric Flair was the best talker potentially of all time. Um, Hulk Hogan is the Babe Ruth of wrestling. You know, he maybe his matches weren't the best, but there's nobody that's a bigger star than Hulk Hogan.
That's interesting. You don't think it's Andre, huh?
Well, I think Andre in the 70s was clearly the biggest star. And I would argue that from a recognizable athlete standpoint, you know, Andre is obviously right near the top. But think about the size of the drawing power of Hulk Hogan. I mean, you had guys like me. You have an LJN figure behind you?
Yeah.
Okay. So think about in 1984, 85. I mean, I think there's estimates they sold like 1 million of the Hogan, you know, LJN figure.
Right.
And I mean, you look at, uh, and I love Andre, so this is no disrespect to him. I
Yeah.
just think that Hogan, um, he's the one, as the expansion took place, that was the draw. You know, you watch these. I'm really into watching the YouTube videos, and you take a guy like Honky Tonk Man. You know, Honky doesn't necessarily like Terry, but he's the first to admit that he was making a fortune when Hogan was on the card. So I just look at wrestling as it's a draw sport. It's all about asses in the seats. You know, like Goldberg's a perfect example. You know, he takes all this heat online that, oh, Goldberg's matches suck. Let me tell you something. When Goldberg was on top in 99, we went to a WCW event here in Orlando like a week before he beat Hogan for the title in the Georgia Dome in front of 40,000, and they sold that out in a week. That place was on fire. So, you know, Goldberg may not be a Shawn Michaels in the ring. You know, maybe he's not the guy that can tell the story, but I'm a big believer that wrestling is a show. So it's, you know, if you look at the size of Goldberg in 99, guy's 295 pounds. He's got traps the size of my head. Do you want to take that spear? No, you don't. You know, a guy like Brock, you know, Brock's my favorite. He's been my favorite since 2002. All these fanboys and all these armchair bookers all over the internet. Oh, Brock sucks. Oh, oh, he needs to put other people over. Well, wrestling is about suspension of disbelief. Okay. And I can't believe that Tyler Breeze has a shot against Brock Lesnar. Okay. You can't take Dave here that weighs 170 pounds and put him in the ring against Brock and somehow create this match where it's like, oh, well, it told this great story. No, it doesn't, because I would run from Brock Lesnar. So I just think that Hogan was the draw, and I think Hogan is the one that took the sport to the highest level. And, you know, he did it as a good guy and a bad guy, you know. So that's my take. But, you know, there's lots of great guys.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time tonight. I told you my goal this year is to get one of those 82 sets, the Series A, Series B. That's the goal. I saw one on Craigslist last year for a few $100, and I didn't pull the trigger because it was raw, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get it because I don't like buying stuff from Craigslist. I don't know if it was you that had it. It was in Florida. I don't know if it was you that had it up there, but
no. I mean, I still have the lion's share of the cards I've bought.
Yeah.
Sold. So one of the things, I'll make this quick because it sounds like we're wrapping up. One of the things that's been a big driver of the cards is the signed stuff. Now I have a bunch signed, but there's a lot of people at wrestling conventions now that get them signed. So there's nobody out there that you can come to and get quantity other than me. So, you know, like, or that's at least willing to sell them. So, you know, I've sold a bunch to guys that are going to, you know, wrestling conventions to get signed. But you don't see much stuff for sale online. and I'll put some stuff up pretty soon. But I've still got. I don't. I mean, I don't even know. Like 2,500. Or I had well over 3,000 of the cards. I don't know where I'm
Wow.
at. Oh yeah, I got a bunch.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's one card I'm looking for. If you come across it, you let me know. I'll buy it from you.
Who?
PSA 10 85 tops Brutus Beefcake.
It's funny. I've got I opened a rack box, and I have 4 strong candidates that are Brutus, right? But you asked me earlier about sending stuff in. The challenge, okay, a Brutus is at a 9, 10 or $12 card, right? So there's not really a lot of upside to send it in. The 10, I want to say the pop is like 3 of those. I'd have to.
That's it, huh?
I think
Interesting.
it's no. I mean, well, let's make something clear. Some of it has to do with the fact that there's just not been that many sent in. Okay.
Right.
Some of it has to do with people like me that are not necessarily. I will take a chance on some cards. I will take a chance. I mean, a card I want for my collection, I'm like, okay, fine. If it costs me $8 or $9, $10 to get holder, big deal. But a Brutus, I got 3 or 4 of them that are, nice copies. But if they get a 9, I might lose money, by pay fees. You see what I'm saying? So the challenge with a lot of these cards like that is the upside is just not high enough to induce a lot of submissions, right?
Right.
But you probably find your best bet is somebody like a 4 Sharp Corners, and they've got their reputation. Some people like them, some people don't. But they probably get one of those and put it for like $70.
Yeah.
Right now, you see that card show up for $70, you just buy it because you part of graded cards is just weighing the risk reward. I could send 7 of them in, and if they all get 9s, I got $70 in it.
Right.
Say, well, I'll buy the 10, and we've knocked that baby off the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. I maybe have to have you on again. I feel like I could have talked for like 7 hours.
Hey, dude, it's been fun. It's this was a really. I've done some interviews before. This was probably the most fun because I feel like we had a chance to just kind of open up and cover everything that you wanted.
Yeah, no, I had a great time. I appreciate it. All right, thanks, buddy.
All right, see you guys.
So that was David Peck. So we have upcoming the rest of the week. Tomorrow night we have Pack Geek coming on from Twitter, YouTube, and then Thursday night we have Dana Cairns on, very funny comedian who I'm friends with here in Boston. And then Wednesday night we'll just have my friend Billy Allen from Open Season, and I think Ashley might be making an appearance as well. Please check out my Facebook page at YouTube. Let me ask you this, and subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow.